We are on a trail in Meadow Park, one of the naturalized areas in the city of Minnetonka. And we're here today to look at an area where there are quite a few green ash and black ash along the trails and in woods. And we're here to take a look at how the forest composition might change and how the look of the trail might change once emerald ash borer arrives in Minnetonka.
Welcome to Why Trees Matter. I'm John Lloyd with the Urban Forestry Institute, and today as our guest we have Emily Ball, who is the City Forester for the City of Minnetonka and is also an Assistant Professor of Arborology at the Urban Forestry Institute. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.
Now, we're on the topic of emerald ash borer right now, and one of the issues we're dealing with are a lot of these communities where it has not been found, but it is inevitably going to get there. And Minnetonka being, pretty far away from the epicenter, you're still actually in play. You're actually planning for emerald ash borer being in your community. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And now, did you receive funding from the Department of Natural Resources this year?
We received a Department of Agriculture grant through the Outdoor Heritage Council, so we did receive some funding.
Okay. And what are you doing with that funding?
We have 4 phases to our project. One of the phases is to do a tree inventory in our mowed, maintained areas of our parks and city properties. And another phase is to hire an intern, forestry intern this summer, to help start scouting for declining ash trees. So we can start removing some declining ash now and replanting in advance of EAB being found. And then we have quite a few educational plans. So we'd like to hold an open house next winter. We have a full-page color educational brochure in the Minnetonka Memo, which is the city's newsletter. It's the #1 way that residents report getting city news. So we plan to do that. And
okay. So you're doing an inventory now strictly to identify the ash trees that you have in the community.
Right. So we have given a lot of thought. Previous inventories have been started, and we did a preliminary inventory last year in our natural areas of our parks. We have 42 community parks within the city and about 1,200 acres of parkland. Of that, about 700 are natural areas, so wooded, wetlands. And so we have a lot of park land, a lot of natural areas, but we also have some mowed, maintained, managed areas of our parkland. So the inventory we started last year was looking at our natural areas to figure out what our ash population was, basically natural regeneration, growing ash in the natural areas of our parks. And we started that, got some good information. We were grateful to have learned that about the natural areas of our parks have about 10% ash population, with the exception of Meadow Park, which has about 25% ash, and a lot of that has to do with not only the green ash that are on the forest edges, but it's a wetland area, so there are a lot of black ash that are naturally occurring in that area. So the next parts of our inventory, we're going to break it up into phases, and we did this because our community is very wooded. And so to inventory every single tree on all the streets and in all the parks and get a good idea of what's going on private property would be cost prohibitive. And it's always been cost prohibitive. It's always been really important, but it hasn't been urgent. And so with EAB being found, 17 miles is the closest, 16 miles from our border, we'll start doing the inventory in the mowed, maintained areas first, and then we'll do a statistical sample of our ash in the right-of-way easement area, and then we'll be looking at what's on private property just so that we can be able to advise residents. But one thing to keep in mind with our right-of-way areas is the trees in those areas are not necessarily the city's trees.
Okay. So within, again, Minnetonka is a very wooded area, and you have some survey results from the natural areas that you were looking at, city-owned natural areas. 25% was the highest. How many trees does that actually equate to?
Well, we did sampling in those areas, so we didn't sample every single tree. We approximate throughout the city based on private and public inventories that have been done. We think that the city has about 120,000 ash, both on private and public property. So that's the entire city.
Okay.
But we don't have a comprehensive inventory at this point, so we're piecing together information at this point. One of the things we're going to implement this summer, the city started a farmers market last year, and it was really a popular event for the community. And so we plan to have a presence there so that people can just informally walk up to the booth, ask questions. We'll have handouts. So that's one thing. And then we always bring EAB materials and information to we have an open house in October. We have an eco fair in March. We had a representative from the Minnesota Department of Agriculture last year at that event. This year we're moving it to June. It'll be a summer event. So those are the types of ways that we're going to try to integrate into the community, but we'll be doing more as time goes on.
Okay. Now again, being further away from the epicenter, what are your plans for when it does eventually reach Minnetonka? Do you have some action plans in place as to the steps that you're going to take?
We do. We're working on the plan this winter, and so once we finish the plan, we'll be bringing it forward to our city attorney and our council, and ultimately they'll be the decision makers in terms of, how many budget dollars will get allocated to this project, and ultimately what we do. But our plans right now is to start reducing our ash inventory in our parks. So starting to remove some of the declining ash so that when it does get here, we won't have as big of an issue on our hands.
Okay.
In terms of how we'll handle infested trees in the right-of-way, right now the trees are viewed as the underlying property owner's tree, but the city has a shared interest because it's next to our road and we want to maintain the safety of our right-of-way, our road. And so right now we have a cost share program for diseased elms and oaks, so the underlying homeowner pays for half the removal cost for the tree removal and the stump, and we do not replant in boulevard areas. And so we'll be bringing some suggestions to the council, and ultimately they'll advise us on how they want us to handle infested ash in the right-of-way.
Okay. So at this point, you're not really in an active, let's remove the ash and replace them yet. You're still working on that plan.
Yep, we'll start implementing that next fall.
Next fall. Okay, that's great. You do have planting plans in place, though, every year, correct?
We plant in our parks kind of a replacement plan. So we lose a few, we plant a few. We primarily do that through our Arbor Day event. So we choose a park. Last year it was Glenmore Park. We recognize that park was a little bit overrepresented by ash trees, and so we removed a few ash trees and planted a greater tree diversity there.
Okay.
So,
and you do have a tree sale every year.
We do have a tree sale.
Can you tell me about that?
Sure. The tree sale is the intent of that is to encourage private property owners to replace trees that are lost due to disease or if they're overmature, if they fail in a storm or something like that. And so every year we sell between 1,200 and 1,800 trees. This is the fourth year of the tree sale event. And we usually offer between 10 and 13 species. So people have a choice of species diversity. I keep track in a spreadsheet of what our species diversity is so that we're getting not only species diversity, but age diversity in the urban forest. So we're not offering all maples one year, all maples the next year. We're trying to space out when we're offering certain species so that we're getting different age diversity within the species too.
And species diversity is really a big issue when it comes to this whole emerald ash borer thing, because we had Dutch elm disease come through, and then we replaced them all with ash because they were very resistant to tolerant species. Now we have emerald ash borer coming in. So we're trying to get away from planting essentially monocultures or blocks upon blocks of certain trees, correct?
That's true.
So what are the trees, which of the trees are you actually promoting the planting of the most? Which, at least for your tree selection, because everybody always asks, okay, fine, I'm going to remove my ash tree or I'm going to lose my ash tree. I don't want to have to deal with this again. What can I plant? And of course, everybody wants a tree that will be mature in their lifetime. What kind of recommendations are you giving to your citizens?
Well, because we still have a lot of our pre-settlement forests were primarily oak woodlands. We also have some wet prairie areas, so a lot of wetlands. So it's really based on what are the site conditions in your yard. We promote a lot of native trees because they provide a site for native insects, which provide food for birds. And so we do really promote natives as much as possible. So some of the species we've offered are bur oak. People get really freaked out that it takes a long time to grow, but it's really not. It doesn't grow like a cottonwood, but there are a lot of benefits to its slower growth, better branch attachments. You know, it's a great tree for wildlife benefit. So bur oak, swamp white oak. We've offered quite a few different types of maples. Everyone wants maples and crab apples, so we throw a few of those in there. But then we order a set amount at the start of the sale, and so bur oaks are usually the last to go, but they go. People eventually do buy them. We've offered ironwood, so we have a lot of woodlands, so we're offering understory types of trees. We've offered serviceberry. We've offered viburnum. We have offered Canadian hemlock because it's a shade-tolerant tree that can be used in an understory and provides benefits. We've offered, trying to think of all the species we've offered. Red oak, we've offered red oak.
Okay.
Yeah, ginkgo.
Ginkgo.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a native.
Few.
Yeah.
A few. That's not a native.
No, actually, it is.
Not to hear.
In the fossil record.
Yes, in the fossil record, right? Yeah.
No, it seems to me like you have a pretty progressive program in that you're actually working with replanting trees, and it just so happens that the emerald ash borer is coming in, so you're kind of focusing on ash replacement at this point. A lot of communities around the metro may not have the structure or the ability to do these kinds of things or the resources to do it. What kind of advice would you get, or what kind of, as a city forester in a community with a lot of forested areas, what would you say to some of these folks, give them kind of advice for planning? I know the inventory is crucial.
The inventory is crucial. It's really hard to manage what you have unless you know what you have. And I think we all have to have a little bit of a shift in our perspective. We know where our manholes are. We know how many lines or miles of curb we have. We know how many miles of pipe we have. And if you've made an investment to plant a tree, then you need to make the investment to water the tree, to mulch the tree, to prune the tree, and eventually you're going to have to make an investment to remove the tree. And so an inventory of some sort, even if it's just an Excel spreadsheet, is really important to get a start so you know what you have.
So the trees really are a part of the public works, pretty much.
They are.
System.
They're part of your green infrastructure. They provide services like your storm sewers do. They intercept stormwater. They stabilize soil, preventing erosion and protecting water quality. They cool the air, so they provide a buffer to the urban heat island effect. They provide services, whether or not we've quantified them, they do. Not to mention the aesthetics and the peace of mind that they offer.
So. It's definitely not a solution just to remove all the ash trees and put in more cement sidewalks. It's really,
right.
We are losing something significant by those ash.
We are. Yep. And so I think the other thing that I would recommend to communities is don't make decisions based on fear. Don't cut down all your trees at the same time. On the flip side, don't treat every single tree. The tree needs to be evaluated. Does it have good structure? Has it been pruned? If it has codominant leaders with decay and it's not structurally sound, it might not be the best investment to inject that tree or to be protecting it with pesticides. What might be a better option is to do some replanting instead.
And explain to me a little bit about how the structure is politically within the city of Minnetonka, who you respond to, and then how the council gets informed of this information, because a lot of the communities that are in the viewing area here may not actually have the system that you have set up to deal with this. Could you kind of explain how that works?
Sure. Once we came up with a plan, we brought it, our city manager brought it to our city council and introduced it actually during the budget cycle. So they were reviewing the budget for 2010. So we thought it was really crucial to get some information on emerald ash borer preparedness in this year's budget. So this was back in June when we did this. And so we talked to the city manager, shared our modified or outline of our management plan with them. And then they did approve funding for us to get started on EAB preparedness.
A lot of the smaller communities around here may not have that much of a structure, but you said you're willing to assist them if they have questions.
Definitely, definitely. I've talked to Minnetonka Beach has probably been the most frequent. You know, they call and ask. I act as a sounding board when they have ideas, or I make suggestions, or I recommend other people in the field because I'm, tapped in. So I know consultants, and I know other city foresters. I know what other communities are doing for the most part, and so I'm definitely happy to provide some help.
Well, that's great. And do you have information on the City of Minnetonka website?
We do.
And what is the address for that?
It's www.eminnetonka.com.
And with that, thank you, Emily, for joining us today for Why Trees Matter.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Next, we're going to be talking with Mark Abrahamson, who is with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. Mark was actually there when they discovered emerald ash borer. And so we'll see you next week. Thank you for watching Why Trees Matter. Why Trees Matter is brought to you by the Urban Forestry Institute. Our sponsor today was Rainbow Tree Care Company's Science, Service, and Satisfaction. Our guest today was provided by the City of Minnetonka, Minnesota, where quality is our nature.